Hello and welcome to Red Sports Talk. My name is Zach, and it was a pretty wild week 3 of NFL games to kind of follow up a pretty wild week 2. So my record prediction for week 3, I went 7-9, giving me an overall record of 25-23. So let's get into these week 4 game picks, see if I can do any better than I did in week 3. Week 4 kicks off Thursday night between the Dallas Cowboys, who are 1-2, taking on the New York Giants, who are also 1-2. The Giants got their first win of the season, a pretty surprising win in my opinion, over the Cleveland Browns, in which Malik Nabers looked very good. Their defense played pretty tough, and despite Daniel Jones' best efforts, the New York Giants managed to get the win. The Dallas Cowboys, coming off of a loss to the Baltimore Ravens, which the Ravens were up 28-6 to go into the fourth quarter, and the Cowboys tried to make a comeback, recovered an onside kick late in the game, ultimately wound up falling 28-25. But Dak Prescott looked very good, even though he didn't get the ball to CeeDee Lamb very much. Their run defense just didn't look all that good. But despite that, I am going to pick the Cowboys in this game. I think that Dak and the offense are going to play much better than the Giants are going to be able to keep up with, even with Malik Nabers. And I think their defense is going to be able to slow down Daniel Jones a little bit. And as solid of a running back as Devin Singletary is, I don't think he is an elite running back, a top-tier running back that's really going to run all over this Cowboys defense. He might have a decent game, but I don't think it'll be good enough for the Giants to win, so I do think the Cowboys win this one. Now getting into your Sunday afternoon games, if you have a divisional matchup on Thursday between the Cowboys and the Giants. Now you have another divisional matchup between the New Orleans Saints, who are 2-1, coming off their first loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Atlanta Falcons, who are 1-2, coming off of a very close loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Saints, their defense played very well in this game. Played very well against the Eagles. Their offense was a little slow. Derek Carr underperformed for what he'd been doing the first 2 weeks of the season. Alvin Kamara didn't get a whole lot of touches. Raheem Shaheed had no catches in the first 2 weeks. Each game it had a big catch for a touchdown. The Atlanta Falcons, they played well against the Chiefs, but they made some mistakes late in the game that did wind up costing them. I am going to pick the Falcons in this game. I think that their offense is just too good. Even with how good this Saints defense is, I think their Falcons offense is going to play very well. Kirk Cousins is coming on. Bijan has still played well over the past few weeks. Even got a touchdown against the Chiefs. Drake London is starting to look good. Kyle Pitts, he can continue to get work in the offense. This offense is going to be a problem for defenses, and I don't think that the Saints offense is going to be able to play well enough, especially because this Falcons defense is a pretty good defense. They have some pretty good pieces. I do think the Falcons get the win here. Next up, you have the Los Angeles Rams, who are 1-2, coming off of their first victory, getting a comeback win over the San Francisco 49ers. And you have the Chicago Bears, who are also 1-2, coming off a loss to the Indianapolis Colts, in which, honestly, they played well. Caleb Williams, at least in terms of passing, looked really good. Roman Dunze, their rookie wide receiver, had a good game and a touchdown, but they just turned the ball over too many times, and it wound up costing them. The Rams have a bunch of pieces out with injury right now. Still missing Puka Nacua, still missing Cooper Kupp. Still have some O-line injuries. But I am going to pick the Rams in this game, mainly because I don't know if I can trust the Bears. The Bears' offensive line is not good at all. There was, especially in the run game, there was a play this week in which they were running near the goal line, and there was 3 or 4 offensive linemen on the Bears that just got knocked down to the ground, running back tackled for a loss against a not very good run defense in the Indianapolis Colts. So I do think the Rams, despite their injuries, I think Matthew Stafford's still going to be able to play well with who he does still have left at wide receiver with Tutu Atwell and Demaryius Robinson. And I think in the run game, Kyren Williams is still going to play very well. Their defense, I think, will play good enough. Maybe they'll, especially against this poor offensive line and rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. So I do think the Rams get it done here. Next up, you have the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 0-3, taking on the Carolina Panthers, who are 1-2. If I had to pick one of these teams that was going to be 0-3 going into this week, it would not have been the Cincinnati Bengals. They're coming off of a very high-scoring loss to the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football, which their offense looked really, really good. They didn't punt the ball, didn't turn the ball over. Neither team in that game with the Commanders had a turnover or a punt. But the thing that really cost the Bears, they lost by 5 points. They missed a field goal earlier in the game, and then later in the game when they had to go for 2, they missed it. They weren't able to convert 2-point conversion, so that wound up being a big factor in what cost them the game. The Carolina Panthers coming off a very surprising victory over the Las Vegas Raiders to get their first win, in which Andy Dalton looked very good. He threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first start of the season, his first start in pretty much a year. Their defense played okay against the Raiders, but I do think the Bengals get the win here. I'm very surprised the Bengals are 0-3, but I think their offense is playing well. Hopefully their defense can get it together against this Carolina Panthers team, and the Bengals wind up getting the win here. Next up, you have the 2-1 Philadelphia Eagles taking on the 2-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Philadelphia Eagles coming off of a very close victory over the New Orleans Saints to give the Saints their first loss of the season, and the Buccaneers coming off of a very disappointing showing over the Denver Broncos for the Buccaneers to get their first loss of the season. The Eagles, their offense, Saquon Barkley looks very good. Devontae Smith did go out with a concussion against the Saints towards the end of the game, so his status is iffy. A.J. Brown missed his second game in a row against the Saints. Maybe he'll be able to come back. Dallas Goedert had a really good game for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts had some turnovers. Hopefully he can kind of get that squared away. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just did not look good at all against the Denver Broncos. And there was a team I thought they would be able to easily beat. So I am going to go with the Eagles in this game. I think that the run game is really going to be what helps get them the win. Hopefully, their defense can play well for a second week in a row like they did against New Orleans. I do think the Eagles are going to get probably a close victory over the Buccaneers. Next up, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 3-0, going up against the Indianapolis Colts, who are 1-2. The Steelers remain undefeated, beat the LA Chargers, who were 2-0 at the time, to remain undefeated. And you have the Indianapolis Colts coming off their first win of the season, beating the Chicago Bears. And, kind of a sloppy game by both the Bears and the Steelers. Anthony Richardson did not play all that well against the Bears, but they did manage to squeak out a victory. And the Steelers have done a very good job of just playing Steelers football, of run the ball on offense and play very strong defense. And I think that continues this week. I think they get the win against the Colts. I think they'll be able to out-physical them on offense with the running game, and kind of maybe out-physical them on defense with their very good pass rush, their very good run defense. I think the Steelers get the win and remain undefeated. Next up, you have another undefeated team in the Minnesota Vikings, taking on their division rival in the 2-1 Green Bay Packers. The Vikings coming off of a win over the Houston Texans, and you have the Green Bay Packers coming off of a win over the Tennessee Titans. Against the Texans, the Vikings defense looked very good. Their defense has looked good all season. Their offense is playing well with Sam Darnold. He's not making a whole lot of mistakes. Justin Jefferson continues to look very good, and Aaron Jones has played well. Running back, the Green Bay Packers don't. Malik Willis looked good against the Titans. He looked improved from his first start 2 weeks ago over the Colts. Their defense looked very good against the Titans. But I am going to pick the Minnesota Vikings in this game. There is a possibility Jordan Love starts for the Packers this week. It looks like he's recovering well from his MCL sprain. But I still don't think it's going to be enough to overcome that Minnesota Vikings defense. And I do think their offense will play good enough to win them the game. Next up, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 0-3, taking on the Houston Texans, who are 2-1. It's another divisional game. The Jaguars are coming off of just a really bad loss to the Bills on Monday Night Football, in which they lost 47-10. It was, the Bills put up like 30 at halftime. It was not a good game for the Jaguars. The Texans coming off of a loss to the Minnesota Vikings. But I do believe because of the Texans' offense and their defense is still playing pretty well, I think the Texans get the win here over Jacksonville. Jacksonville has just not really shown anything this year, but they're going to be a contender in the AFC South. I think they're going to be competing with the Titans for last place in the division at this point. The Houston Texans had not the best game against Minnesota Vikings. They were missing Joe Mixon with an ankle injury at running back. Hopefully he can be back and work back in the offense. CJ Stroud had some turnovers, so I think they'll kind of figure something out against this Jacksonville Jaguars defense, which is nowhere near as good as the Minnesota Vikings defense. So I think the Texans get it done here. Next up, you have the Denver Broncos, who are 1-2, taking on the New York Jets, who are 2-1. The Broncos coming off their first victory of the year over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the New York Jets coming off of a very big victory over the New England Patriots last week. Jets offense looked very good in that game against a good Patriots defense. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's coming along well from after his Achilles injury last season. He's running around more. He had some scrambles. The offense looks to be clicking better with between him and Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson got a touchdown. This offense looks to be very good. Their defense still looks to be very good. So I do think the Jets get the win here. I think their offense continues to improve against this Broncos team, who does have a very good defense, but I think the Jets are their offense is just going to continue to look good, and I think this Jets defense, this is going to be too much for a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. So I think the Jets get it done here. Next up, you have the Washington Commanders, who are 2-1, taking on the Arizona Cardinals, who are 1-2. The Commanders coming off a very high-scoring victory on Monday night over the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Arizona Cardinals coming off of a close loss to the Detroit Lions. Commanders, their offense looks really good right now, but Jaden Daniels still taking some big hits, still making some rookie throws, still not sensing pressure and trying to get rid of the ball too early. But their offense as a whole still looking very good. Their defense looks almost non-existent. They looked almost non-existent the first all 3 games this season. And the Arizona Cardinals are still playing well. They're still staying. Their 2 losses this season to the Bills and the Lions. They've stayed in the game. They made it close. So I do think the Cardinals get the win here. I think their offense is going to be able to perform very well against this Commanders defense. And I think they're going to be able to keep it close. And I think if they can keep it close, then their offense should be able to pull ahead. And the Cardinals should get the win here. Next up, you have the New England Patriots, who are 1-2, taking on the San Francisco 49ers, who are a very surprising 1-2. The Patriots, coming off of that Thursday night loss to the Jets this past week, and the San Francisco 49ers coming off a loss to the Rams, in which the Rams were able to come back from, I think, 14 points down and wind up winning the game. I was really wondering how I would, talk myself into picking the Patriots for this game. And the 49ers are dealing with injuries. George Kittle has been injured. Don't know when he's going to come back. Maybe he'll be back this week. Deebo Samuel's injured. He's going to be out for a few more games. Brock Purdy is a little banged up and is day-to-day, but it's most likely still going to play in this game. Javon Hargrave, their starting defensive tackle, looks like he may have torn his pec and could be out for the rest of the season. So they're a little banged up on defense. But I am still going to pick the 49ers in this football game. As much as I would like to see the Patriots win, I just don't think their offensive line is going to be good enough to really protect whoever they have at starting quarterback. I think it's still going to be Jacoby Brissett. I don't think they should throw Drake May in as the starter yet. Drake May got one drive in against the Jets at the end of the game, in which the Patriots were out of it. I just kind of threw him in to see what they had, and he was sacked twice in a 4-minute drive, which is never good. So this offensive line is not good. I don't know what the offense is really going to be able to do. I think the defense is going to be able to keep it close with the 49ers, but I do think the 49ers are going to be able to pull out the win. Next up, you have the Cleveland Browns, who are 1-2, taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, who are also 1-2. Both these teams coming off losses, giving teams their first win of the season. You have the Browns coming off a loss to the New York Giants, and you have the Raiders coming off a loss to the Carolina Panthers. Both these teams are very inconsistent. Offensively, their defenses have played decent. Well, actually, the Raiders' defense looked actually terrible against the Carolina Panthers. So the first two games, the Raiders' defense played pretty good. But this past game against the Panthers, they just looked non-existent. They didn't look like they wanted to tackle anybody. It didn't look like they wanted to be there. And the Browns, their offense is the epitome of inconsistency. You don't know what you're going to get from Deshaun Watson from week to week. He looked decent in week 2, terrible in week 1, showed some flashes this week against the Giants, but overall was not very good. But I am going to pick the Browns in this game. I think their defense is going to play well against a struggling Raiders offense and kind of force the turnovers to maybe get themselves in good field position to hopefully get some good play out of Amari Cooper and the run game. Hopefully Deshaun Watson, this is one of his weeks where he's a decent quarterback. So I do think the Browns can get the win here. Next up, you have the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 3-0, taking on the LA Chargers, who are 2-1. The Chiefs coming off a win over the Atlanta Falcons to keep their undefeated season alive so far after 3 games, and the Chargers coming off of a loss over the Pittsburgh Steelers to give them their first loss of the season. The Chargers, you have rookie tackle Joe Alt, who went out of the game with an injury, and you don't know if he's going to play this week. You got Justin Herbert dealing with a high ankle sprain, which he suffered 2 weeks ago, and then re-aggravated this last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. You don't know if he's going to play, or if he plays, what he's going to look like. Their run game did not look good against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's been their offensive identity for the first 2 games of the season. And the Chiefs, their offense still looks very good. Rashee Rice and Patrick Mahomes looked to have a very strong connection in the receiving game. Carson Steele looked pretty good in the run game with Isaiah Pacheco out. Their defense still plays very well. So I do think the Chiefs get the win here. I think their defense is going to be able to play well against this Chargers offense. And I think they're going to be able to play good enough against this Chargers defense, who actually will be without Derwin James, their starting strong safety, he is suspended for this game after a illegal tackle on Steelers tight end Pat Freiermuth. So I do think the Chiefs get the win here. Next up, Sunday Night Football, you have the Buffalo Bills, who are 3-0, taking on the Baltimore Ravens, who are 1-2. The Bills coming off of a blowout win over the Jacksonville Jaguars, which they beat them 47-10, and the Ravens coming off of a nail-biter that shouldn't have been a nail-biter win over the Dallas Cowboys. I mentioned the Ravens had a 28-6 lead going into the fourth. The Dallas Cowboys scored 19 unanswered points and almost got the win, almost completed the comeback. And the Bills, there was no, the Jaguars didn't even have a chance in that game. The Bills got on early and didn't really let up. So I do think the Bills get the win here. The Bills have looked fantastic the first 3 games of the season. I don't see any reason why that's going to change. The Ravens started looking good against the Chiefs. Ultimately lost that game. Started off strong against the Raiders in week 2. Ultimately lost that game. Looked fantastic for the first 3 quarters against the Cowboys. Almost blew that game after, a big lead. So I think the Buffalo Bills are just going to play. They're too good. I think their offense is going to be too good against this Ravens defense. And I do think that the Bills get the win here. So this week, for the second week in a row, you have a doubleheader of Monday night games. The first game, you have the Tennessee Titans, who are 0-3, taking on the Miami Dolphins, who are 1-2. The Titans, it's just kind of been a game of how is Will Levis going to throw the game away? Or how is their offense going to struggle? What turnovers are they going to get? Are they going to cause this week? It didn't change. Will Levis do a pick 6 against the Green Bay Packers this week. But for the Miami Dolphins, their offense is just in shambles right now. Since Tua has been out, they had Skylar Thompson start this week, and he got knocked out of the game with an injury against Seattle. Tim Boyle who had to go in. I think if you have to have Tim Boyle play or even Skylar Thompson play, I don't know if I can trust this Miami Dolphins offense. I don't know if I can trust the Tennessee Titans offense either, but I would certainly trust them more than I would trust Miami with Skylar Thompson or Tim Boyle. So I am going to pick the Titans in this game. Hopefully they can just get the run game going and not have to make Will Levis make tough throws, not have to come back, not have to try and, come back at the end or try to, Will Levis having to make all kinds of throws, and they just kind of run the ball, run the clock out, and keep it a kind of low-scoring game against the Miami Dolphins and ultimately get the win. Next up, you have the Seattle Seahawks, who are 3-0, taking on the Detroit Lions, who are 2-1. The Seahawks coming off of a win against the Dolphins, in which they kind of decimated them. I believe it was 24-3. And you have the Dolphins coming off of, the Lions coming off a very close victory, hard-nosed victory over the Arizona Cardinals. Both teams have looked good this year. The Lions have been in every game, even their one loss for the Buccaneers. There was a very close game 2 weeks ago. The Seahawks, their offense looked pretty good. Their defense has played well, but I am going to go with the Lions here. I think they just have too much on offense in the run game, in the pass game. Their defense is very good against the run, and you don't know if Kenneth Walker's going to play. Even if he does, I think this defense is going to play very well against him. I think Geno Smith makes some mistakes, and I do believe that the Lions get the win here. Let me guys know who you think is going to win this week in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, see ya.